Good afternoon, everyone. This is Jared Rand, and welcome to the Global Guided Meditation Call for Friday, April 26, 2024, a little after 3:15 p.m. Eastern. We'll be having a reverse aging health call tonight, all around 9 or so p.m. Eastern. One might ask the question, are you stuck in time or not? Time is a river that flows from birth to death, a lifetime. If you are in time, you will suffer and you will die. If you change your identification from that which dies to your soul, then you move into the realm of awareness that is beyond time, though it includes time. Then you are a soul who is part of the one. And souls don't die. Rilke said, "Love and death are magnificent gifts which many of us leave unopened." Making peace with your feelings about death is a prerequisite for living life joyfully, here and now. And then death does not have to be treated as an enemy for you to delight in life. Keeping death present in your consciousness as one of the greatest mysteries, as the moment of incredible transformation, imbues this moment with added richness and energy. The minute the fear of death has been faced, meaning of life changes. Otherwise, your fear distorts your perception all the time. You panic. Someone gets near death. That panic is because of your identification with those thoughts. The journey of consciousness is about arriving at a balance in life where you are open to the mystery of it all. You can't be open when you're loaded down with a lot of conceptual stuff. In my own consciousness, I watch how long it takes when an expectation isn't fulfilled before I come back again to being in the present moment. How long before I can let go of not getting what I wanted and just be with what is? As long as you identify with the part of you that dies, there's always fear of death, because it is the fear of cessation of existence. So, when you understand, obviously, that you're not the body and you go beyond the body, knowing that this essence of your awareness is beyond death, these issues of death, pain and suffering, bring us to the very limit of our mind's ability to deal with the mystery of life. Many people rely on religion to reassure them about death. But religious teachings are a belief system that are part of the mind structure. And fear is inherent in a belief system, because when you die, your mind dies and your beliefs die with it. A belief won't keep you warm on a cold night. What may serve you is faith, not faith in something outside. I mean living in faith. It is faith in the sense that you live in absolute wonder, in the presence of the great mystery. In our Western culture, although death has come out of the closet, it is still not openly experienced or discussed. Now, different parts of this planet, there are differences in our outlook on death, and that are basically enormous differences. Now, in India, death is a familiar part of life. Allowing dying to be so intensely present enriches both the preciousness of each moment, and our detachment from it. Now there, it is not unusual to see a body being carried down the street on the way to the burning ghat to be cremated. The body leaves with the head facing back to its physical home. Halfway to the burning ghat, the body is turned around so the head is facing the opposite direction toward the burning ghat, to symbolize the transition to the spiritual home. The whole way, people in the procession are chanting Ram Nam Satya Hai. Satya, Bol Satya Hai, which means God's name is truth. There's two people walking, right? And one of them suddenly looks up and says, Ma just died. She was an old woman and a great devotee. Since she lived in a distant city, it was obvious he had seen her death on another plane. Then he laughed and laughed and laughed. His devotee was shocked and called Maharajji a butcher to laugh at the death of such a beautiful and pure woman. He turned and said, "What do you want me to do? Act like one of the puppets?" Death is way skewed. The body passes away. Everything is impermanent except the love of God, and the body dies, but not the soul. This world is all attachment. Yet, you get worried because you are attached. See, we've been taught for so long, and so many generations, that we're caught in time. And by being caught in time, what do? We fear. Why do people fear death? Why? What's the reason? It's an unknown. They haven't learned what it's all about. The death is the body, not who and what you are. And that's why this fellow laughed and laughed and laughed and was called a butcher, because he laughed at a wonderful, pure woman who had just passed. Now, it's interesting how we're taught and how we view things through the years in our lifetimes, and our perspectives and viewpoints, opinions, but what all comes down to it, what happens when you do not fear death? Right? And you know that beyond the body is pure nirvana. In other words, you are the God. You are the light. You're pure consciousness. You're the kingdom of God. You're the heaven. Now, obviously, with over 60,000 different religions on this planet, it is very confusing. Very confusing. Different, perspectives and beliefs and traditions. When someone, it's interesting because I watched my mother. We were sitting at her, it was a retirement home. We were sitting in the living room, and she's in her house coat. And, you know, there were a handful of us there. And she just looked real relaxed, and she just said, well, it's a shame it has to end this way. And I said, what do you mean end this way? She said, well, you know, I'm going to die. And I said, but look at the life you've had. This is just one life. Right? I mean, you're almost 93 years old, and, you know, you had 5 kids, and you traveled the world, and you did all kinds of stuff, and you'll have other lifetimes. Because, see, to her, you know, a devout Roman Catholic, the fear of death is in the mix of Roman Catholics, the fear of death. It's the unknown. You don't know what is going to happen, what happens after you leave the body. See, no one's taught that. No one's taught that the understanding is that, well, you never die. I said to my mother, you never die. The body does. But you, who you really are, goes on. She just kind of smirked, or just a smile. And I said, you've done a lot of things, and there's other things you haven't done that you wish you would have. And so maybe the next lifetime. So she seemed to be good with that. And, you know, so I would sit there and I would say the Gayatri Mantra, which is very powerful frequencies. And she liked that. She liked the vibrational frequency. And I also did it when she was on her end bed, or her deathbed, where she was getting ready to leave the body. And she was morphined up, and she was totally out of it. Her eyes were sunken back in her head. And not my idea of a good way to leave the body. And so I was saying Gayatri Mantra on a continual basis, holding her hand. It was interesting because she would come back into her body and show me that she was appreciating it, and she would grab my hand. You could feel it. It wasn't weak either. She really grabbed my hand. And then she left the body. You know, we have we can make a choice, and we can decide for ourselves to determine what we're going to do in this life with ourselves. I'm not talking about career or aspirations of grandeur and all that stuff. So it's quite interesting when you start to realize that you are not the body, that it's all temporary. And I don't mean superficially, but through your heart-mind, you understand that. It isn't, now to a lot of people this might sound strange, but it isn't a big deal. We've done this thousands of times. And we, the gods that we are, guess what? We're still around, aren't we? How long are we going to be around? Billions, trillions of years? That's why we call it an endless journey. In a Buddhist country, in an ancient time, an army was going through villages and killing many people. They were disemboweling the monks to get rid of Buddhism, which happened a lot in the times of Genghis Khan. there was one particularly harsh commander who had a reputation, this is the Mongol horde, understand, had a reputation for being very cruel. He came into this town and he said to his adjutant, "What's happening in this town?" The adjutant said, "Oh, the people are bowing down to you. They are all afraid of you. All the monks in the monastery have fled to the mountains except for one monk." The commander was furious that a monk was still there. He walked into the monastery and pushed open the gates. And there, in the middle of the courtyard, was the monk just standing there. The captain walked up to him and said, "Don't you know who I am? I could take my sword and run it through your belly without blinking an eye. And don't you know who I am?" said the monk. "I could have your sword run through my belly without blinking an eye." The commander bowed and left. When you get into the spiritual literature, you start to see a lightness about death. A Zen master was dying. Zen masters are supposed to leave a death verse. He didn't. He hadn't written his yet. His students were concerned that he would die before writing his verse. They kept saying, "What about your verse? What about your verse?" So he picked up his calligraphy brush and wrote, "Earth is thus, death is thus, verse or no verse. What's the fuss?" And then he died. In his foreword to a 1960 edition of the Tibetan Book of the Dead, Lama Anagarika Govinda wrote, "It may be argued that nobody can talk about death and authority who has not died, and says nobody apparently has ever returned from death. How does anyone know what death is or what happens after it?" The Tibetan will answer, "There is not one person, indeed, not one living being, that has not returned from death. In fact, we have all died many deaths before we came into this incarnation. And what we call birth is merely the reverse side of death, like one of the two sides of a coin, or like a door, which we call entrance from outside and exit from inside a room. It's much more astonishing that not everybody remembers his or her previous death. And because of this lack of remembering, most people do not believe there was a previous death, but likewise they do not remember their birth. And yet, they do not doubt that they were recently born." Have you ever sat with anybody who's getting ready to leave, like the story I told you about my mother? It's quite interesting. I've done it often with, other people. And even with animals, it's quite interesting. Death is an illusion we all seem to buy into. But death, like anything that catches the heart's attention, can bring out the best in us. We've seen many people as they approach even the confusion around death, go beyond that dismay and become one with the process. They deepen the work they perhaps took birth to complete. They are no longer someone separate, someone dying consciously. They are merely space within space, light within light. See, in the dying being, only that which is eternal. Then you'll be able to communicate as souls. When you're with someone who is dying, be there with them. All you have to do is give your own being. Be honest, meditate, and become aware that the pain or confusion is. And here we are in quiet equanimity. We all have limits of tolerance. Stay as clear and conscious as possible as someone nears death. Open to the unexpected. Open and stay centered. You remain centered, your calm presence helps to free all those around you. Go inside yourself to that quiet place where you are wisdom. Wisdom has in it compassion. Compassion understands about life and death. The answer to dying is to be present in the moment. To learn to die is to learn how to live. And the way you do that is by living each moment. This one. Now this one. Just being here now. The moment when the soul leaves the body is palpable and deeply profound. To share consciousness with a person who is dying, to be with them and help them die consciously, is one of the most exquisite manifestations of service. It is one role you may want to try out yourself. Some of us, the moment of death is looked upon as a ceremony. If people are sitting with you to help as you are going through this dying ceremony, and we did that with my sister. See, my mom passed, and then my sister followed. My mom passed in October of that year, and then my sister followed 2 months later in December. So we were, when I mean me, I mean me, my two brothers, nieces and nephews, and we were sitting. My sister was on her bed, and this was at her home. And she was, when we were all talking, and she seemed to be doing fine, and then she started breaking down, crying, saying that she didn't want to die. She wasn't ready to leave. And so I said to her, I said, yeah, but look at the life. She was 65. And I said, look at the life you've had. Look at all the wonderful things that you've experienced. And so she calmed down. She started realizing that. And she had embraced spirituality a while before that, but not quite. And so she kind of relaxed, and she started going through her things and wanting to have people have certain things. And she knew that she was going to leave the body because she had prepared on purging just about everything she owned. I mean, stuff that she had collected and everything, she'd given it away. She had already given it away to people. But, you know, when I stood with her in the hospice room, and she was pretty much almost out of body. You know, she had advanced stage of cancer, breast cancer, which had then gone throughout her whole body. And cancer is really strange because you smell. It's not just what it looks like, it's what it smells like. It smells like death. And it's a rotten green, brown, black color. And so to me, cancer is pure evil. It really is. There's no good thing about it. So she was almost out of her body because she was staring. I was there next to her, but she was staring off, and she had kind of a confused look on her face. Because she was seeing things that no one else in that room could see. And this is what we call the matrix, and she ended up crossing over into the matrix where she sees everybody. And, you know, she wanted to swim with the dolphins and be on a sailboat, so she was doing that in the afterlife. So it's interesting when you sit with people, loved ones, and even strangers, when they're right on that and you can tell they're almost there of leaving the body. And in most cases, there's fear. You can feel that vibrational frequency of fear of the unknown. Now, some people think, well, this is depressing and everything. Why is it? It's not. Now, oftentimes I've talked about there is a way when the celestial chamber is prominent on this planet, and you live in that body, you're in that body, immortal, you don't age, but you'll determine, how long you want to be in that body. 500 years, 1,000 years, 10,000 years, it just depends. So some people, when conscious, leave their body, they sit up, they take 3 breaths, and they leave. They sit up, they take 3 breaths, and they leave. So this is all about learning how to leave the body when you want to leave the body. It's not about being depressed and want to end your life early. It's about you've finished, as far as you're concerned, in that body. You've done everything that you desired to do. You've discovered about who and what you are. You know, and you're in the now. You've learned to be in the now. We all know that the bodies that we're in right now and how things are in this very now moment is too short for us. Way too short. This is why we keep going in, going out, going in, going out. This is why we do that. In other words, we incarnate and then we leave. And then we incarnate and then we leave. So we just keep incarnating and leaving. So you're conscious. You learn to become conscious when you leave the body. Okay. You can sit there and say, hey, everybody, it's been great, but I'm going to leave the body now. Now, if you are to die consciously, there is no time like the present to prepare. Kind of like a checklist of some of the ways to approach your own death. Live your life consciously and fully. Learn to identify with and be present in your soul, not your ego. Fill your heart with love. Turn your mind toward God, truth. Continue with all your spiritual practices, meditation, mantra, kirtan, all forms of devotion. Be there for the death of your parents, loved ones, or beloved, animals. Know that the presence of your loved ones will remain when you are quiet and bring them into your consciousness. Read about the deaths of great saints and lamas and yogis and so on and so forth, like Ramana Maharishi. If there is a pain at the time of death, do what you can to remain as conscious as possible. Now, a lot of people like morphine and stuff toward the end. Medication for pain offers some solace, but dulls our awareness. To be peaceful at the time of our death, seek peace inside today. Death is another moment. If you're not peaceful today, you probably won't be peaceful tomorrow. Now, some people suddenly, right, different things, accidents and stuff, that they suddenly leave the body. Now, in many ways, it's more difficult to work with spiritually than a gradual passing. Because to be honest with everybody, what do you think we're doing right now? What are we doing? I don't care if you're 10 years old or 100 years old. What are we doing? We're dying. People say, well, now how can that be? I'm healthy and vibrant. Yeah, but your body is dying. This is the now moment. This is how it is now. I think people get the impression that they have to get a certain age before this mortality thing comes up front and center for them. That they don't understand that the body that they're in is dying. And so when they look at that, you start understanding that, guess what you start to do? You begin to live your life fully. See, this is a tough one for many of us. We let go of our individuality. Again, letting go of it, say. Our name, our history, our friends, our cat, our dog, our body. That letting go is meeting the infinite. This is why we surrender. This is why we practice in this life surrendering, letting go. You empty your mind of all thoughts. Let your heart be at peace. Each separate being in this universe returns to the common source. Returning to the source is serenity. If you don't realize the source, you stumble in confusion and sorrow. When you realize where you come from, you naturally become tolerant, disinterested, amused, kind-hearted, as a grandmother, dignified as a king, immersed in the wonder of the Tao, or the now, or the way. You can deal with whatever life brings you. And when death comes, you are ready. And that came from the Tao, the way. Who's the author of that? Lao Tzu. One who also said, it isn't the bowl that is sacred, it is the space that the bowl holds that is sacred. So this is why we say, die every minute of your life. Why? Well, that sounds really macabre and negative. No, quite the contrary. You do that, what do? You begin to appreciate and accelerate your awareness of who and what you are and how precious each moment is while we're in these bodies. Have you ever seen where people, they go through an NDE, near-death experience? Okay? And some of them are so shocked by what they see that it changes their lives forever. Where they could have been a bandito before the near-death experience, really nasty person, disrespectful, and then after the near-death experience, completely do about-face. Because they realize that life is God. God is life. So when we're experiencing a material physical life, we're in deep reverence, devotion to that life. And we experience it with vigor, vim, happiness, joy, bliss, every moment. That's why we practice staying in the now, because our ego minds will take us out of the now. And we will be where? In yesterday and tomorrow. That's what all of this is about. See, before we leave the body, all along in this life, we're preparing ourselves. See, we forgive ourselves of all the things that we believe that we did wrong, or so far in this life, that we did wrong, or we messed up here, or, guilty, and, all kinds of stuff that we carry. And so we go through that and we let it go. Not just superficially. We just really let it go. We understand this. Why am I carrying this with me? It's getting heavier and heavier every year that I carry this stuff. And it doesn't serve me the greater good. And it's a real burden for me. So then why do you carry it? Get rid of it. Let it go. Surrender it. Because the majority of us fight life. We don't know. It's not, I'm going to fight life. It's not about, but we inherently fight life. We're in a hurry. Worst thing you could be is in a hurry. It really is. Very damaging. You don't know that, but it is. Just think, it's how you feel when you're in a hurry. Most of the people on this planet are in a hurry. Okay, why? Well, because they believe that if you are just being, right, that you're doing nothing. And that's a no-no. You've got to be doing something. You've got this to do, that to do, this to do, that to do. And a lot of people on this planet, that's how they live their life. It's like I've said, the tortoise and the hare story. Most of the people on this planet are the hare. Not a lot are the tortoise. And so why would we hurry life? Since it's so precious, why would we hurry it? As kids, were you ever driving with your parents? You're going somewhere, you're excited to get there, and you didn't realize how long it would take. So you'd sit there, and after, you'd do certain games and stuff, and then you start getting bored, and then you'd say, are we there yet? Right? And I remember my mom saying, you just asked me that. I know, but are we there yet? We'll be there in a couple hours. A couple hours? Did you ever do that? As kids, we're in a hurry. Isn't that amazing? Because it's how we're taught. It's how we copy those who program us. Instead of slowing everything down, enjoying every moment with full awareness of each moment. Huge. It's huge. And this is all about us learning how to live for ourselves. What life is really about. Some people think that life is about, climbing mountains and always on the go and always doing things and going here and going there, climbing Mount Everest, doing this and doing that. But that's their prerogative. See? That's how they feel their life. But is there any contemplation or quiet time? Not usually. Why? Because they're running from death. They don't care to be faced with it. They live on the edge. Everybody's different. Everybody has a different, direction or how they view things, is depending on how they've been programmed and how they've been conditioned. So now imagine when you do slow down. Like when if you ever just kind of cruise, you know what I mean? Just cruise. And you're just kind of floating along, and, you're taking your time, and you're loving it. And then there's somebody that's there, and you almost feel like they're poking you and pushing you. Come on, hurry up. What are you doing? Come on. And you get irritated by that because you're in a flow. And you're not interested in anything around you, but you're aware. And you're enjoying the flow. You're floating on the water. You're not swimming. That's the difference for many of us. You know, some people will float on the water, and then they start, and the ego mind comes in and says, well, you got to get going. You can't just lay out here like this. You got to get going. There's a lot of things you got to get done. Right? Then there's other people that just float. And they enjoy every split second of it. And what I mean by floating through this life. At ease with themselves. You know, they've made peace. They stay in the now as much as possible. They're not really concerned about tomorrow at all, or the past, yesterday or tomorrow. Not at all. It's not even something that they choose to spend and put their attention on. They're enjoying life moment to moment to moment. And they're not in a hurry. And they're just floating along, period. You see the difference? And one of the analogies I've used is that, you know, we all come up to a river. Rivers, we've seen rivers, and this one happens to be just white water. It's just really rushing. And you can see fish fighting upstream, jumping, popping out of the water and trying to get upstream, up the river, fight until they spawn and die. And then you see, in the opposite direction, you see people in these little boats, kind of with like a lounge chair in them, and they're just getting in them real slowly and laying back, and just the boats are just, the current is, the boat is being led by the current. They don't have a care in the world. They you know, wherever the boat ends up is fine. And then you look at the opposite and you see all these people on these rafts, and they're just grimacing, and they're beet red, and they're soaked head to toe, fighting that river. That's what most of us do in this life. We fight the current. We fight the life rather than embrace it. See, because when we're in a hurry and we're doing things and we're doing that, it's easy to get caught up. None of us are exempt from it. But we get caught up in it. We don't know it. It just happens. And then, have you ever gotten, you know, it's like the end of your day, you feel absolutely spent. And you say to yourself, I didn't really do that much strenuous or exert that much energy to feel this way. Where does the fatigue come from? It comes from what you don't know about, that you're not aware of, as you fought life that whole day. You didn't embrace it. You didn't go with the flow. You didn't float. You swam. Life's like for any of us, it's like a magic carpet that just takes us along. And we go as slow as we can to enjoy as much as we can. And we know, without fear, that eventually we will leave the body. And we know that we will not die because we're not the body. You see how it all connects? How we differentiate and we start understanding through our own direction and our own choice to go within, and to start feeling through our heart mind all of this. And then you begin to realize that everything is part of you, as you are part of it or them. You can't run from it, really. Because eventually it's going to be there, and you're not going to be able to run. And we're here to master our ego mind in these bodies. We're here to master our thoughts. We're here to forgive ourselves and love ourselves deeply and eternally, and spend as much time as we can with the gods that we are in these bodies. So in the quiet time of this meditation, walk up to your God, the God that you are, and give the God that you are a full body hug. And feel it throughout the quiet time of this meditation. I'll join you in this meditation, and I'll return to close us out. Take an easy and slow breath in through the nose. And an easy and slow breath out from the mouth. Remain still. It is time to release any mental, emotional, or physical inner wound you are holding on to, so that you are more open and receptive to the divinity within. For today, redirect your attention towards the most soft, gentle, loving, healing energy you can imagine. Maybe it's your dog, who knows? Whatever you focus on, let yourself soften and welcome the relaxing, healing vibrations all throughout your body. This gentleness will help you heal in more ways than you know. Imagine a soft, healing energy is penetrating every cell in your body throughout the day today. Notice how your face changes in the mirror when you are focusing on this healing energy. Take this with you for the rest of the day, into the evening and night, the following morning. We will return here tonight for our reverse aging health call, give or take around 9 p.m. Eastern. And Saturday, April 27, 2024, we continue our global guided meditation call around 3:15 p.m. Eastern. Be gentle, kind, generous, and humble with yourself at all times. Be in the highest of the highest high, deepest of the deepest deepest, purest of the purest purest, eternal gratitude at all times. Watch and experience the magic.